Hi, this is Cities Timelines, and I'm Dean Webb. In this series, we're taking a look at cities that have been destroyed by natural disasters or war, and what can be done to rebuild them. In this particular episode, we want to look at whether or not we keep the old street grid or build out new routes. Let's take a look at some cities that were destroyed and see what we can learn from them. The first is Tokyo, Japan. In March of 1945, the United States firebombed Tokyo over 3 nights, and you can see the road grid illuminated by the fire and underneath the smoke. In fact, that's about all that remained of many neighborhoods in Tokyo. This is a photograph of Tokyo after the firebombing was over. And you can see the ancient grid is still there in the city. And many of those who were rebuilding Japan after the war asked the question, should we keep the old medieval roads and zoning that was in place, or take the opportunity to make Tokyo a modern city with more efficient road layouts for the distribution of goods and services and the movement of people, and to take factories and residents and separate the two into differently zoned districts. This was the case for innovation. At the same time, Germany lay in ruins. This is the city of Dresden after it was firebombed by the Allies. Here we see buildings that have to come down. They're not fit for habitation or usage, but we also see that there's some historical character here, and that's another thing the road networks preserve. They show the boundaries of the historical neighborhoods and can help to pinpoint where landmarks once stood if we want to rebuild them. And that's the case for preservation, keeping things as they were to remember what had been gone. So, innovation versus preservation. Which do you feel is more important? Which do you want to err on the side of? In Tuscaloosa, Alabama in the USA in the year 2011, an EF4 or EF5 tornado tore through the city. It carved a path of destruction about 5.5 miles long and about a mile wide. Over 12% of the city was destroyed. When we view the damage from the air, we see remaining is the road network. And again, the question of whether we innovate or preserve came before the Tulsa City Council. Well, they chose a plan that would combine both elements. They wanted to take some low-income housing areas and expand them. The plan called for doubling the total amount of low-income housing in the city. But at the same time, they also wanted to provide new high-end housing for well-to-do students of the university that was in town. So they were going to build both kinds of housing, and to make up for the commercial zones that were going to be displaced by the residential areas, they wanted to integrate them into the residential zones to make the city more walkable and to follow more modern design principles. Well, the rebuilding of Tuscaloosa had some unevenness to it. We can see it captured in this picture here. On the far side of the river is a very large house that was being rebuilt thanks to insurance money and the owners of the property being rather well-to-do. They could get underway with the building pretty quickly. On the near side, there's still the rubble in a low-income area that didn't get off the ground at the very beginning because they were waiting on federal funds, and that's all they had to rebuild with. But even though the rebuilding was uneven, and even though the mayor of Tuscaloosa says he wished he had more low-income housing built out in his plan, still by doubling the number of low-income housing units made a difference in lives of people like this lady here, and the fact that the rebuilt units were of a higher quality and better situated relative to commercial areas made the rebuilding a positive thing in their lives. So we're going to take a look at a city build and determine, what are we going to do? Are we going to innovate and go with new routes, or preserve and keep the old grid? Let's take a look and see what we come up with. So taking a look at the map we used last time, we see we've got a lot of roads already here and railroads as well. I've selected them all already. Now, we have got the Trummerberg here at the edge of town. That's going to stay, but the rest of these really go with a more modern area of history and not for the 1940s that I want to focus on in this build. So I need to get rid of all the highways and railroads, and we're going to lay down a medieval road network after we've cleared it all out. I won't bore you with the details. We'll come back once I've got the entire network built out. Okay, so I've deleted all the new roads and I've put in all the old roads. We're going to start with a look at the cathedral here. It escaped the fire for the most part because, well, it was insulated by the park here and the cemetery over there. They kept the fires from leaping across the street to burn it down. We also have it in the only gridded part of the city. The rest of the original network remains, and you can see it's very medieval. There's no rhyme or reason. There's just some people built houses and then there was a road and then they built more houses and there was more road. We've got this bridge here for an emergency purpose. It may stay there, it may go. I don't know. But we have to also figure out how we're going to connect the main lines of traffic and the railroad lines you see right here. How are we going to connect these with the rest of the city? We've got these connections to worry about, and we can follow some of these lines and you think those are good candidates for arterial roads, but you follow them all the way across and you see it starts to cross over here and here, and you don't want arterial roads crisscrossing each other. So to solve that, we may actually have to straighten them out and break through this neighborhood here, break it up, and put arterial roads through it. That's going to disrupt the neighborhood, the history of the place. Is everyone going to like that? No. But we have to be able to vote on this as a city to determine what do we do with these areas. Do we rebuild the old neighborhoods or do we put in new roads? We've got to connect it up here. We've got to get goods and services delivered. And I know roads like this over here have got to go. They're all tight. They're higgledy-piggledy. They make no sense. And while we're doing this, I've got to also consider, what do we do with these rubble mounds? This is not enough. You look at the area, we need another one over here. We need another one over here and out here because there's just so much rubble. I'd probably get one for this spot over here, and the stuff on the south side, we could put some over here because there's so much rubble we got to clear out. And when we look at the entire city, we're going to clear even more streets away to make room for better neighborhoods. And there's the whole matter of the airport. Where do I put that? There's going to be one coming. I've got to clear out a huge area. Could be over here or there. And again, neighborhoods get destroyed. I don't like that thought, but it's something that we'll have to do. And I want to do it democratically, if all possible. So yes, we've got the cathedral standing, that piece of history, but all the area around it. What do we do? This is a huge question, and I don't answer it in this video. We still ask, are we going to keep the old grid or put in new routes? You help decide. Put it in the comments. See me on Discord. And please like, comment, and subscribe to My City's Timelines channel. And I hope you stay with me through this journey in history.